So today we will continue with the drug absorption, distribution, metabolism and elimination that is coming under or covered under the heading that is pharmacokinetics. So pharmacokinetics is the study of absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion of a particular drug. So in this diagram you can see when we are administering the drug in the body by different routes of drug administration, it has a different routes and different sites where it get available, and it is showing that when we are taking the intravenous injection or intravenous routes of administration, it is directly deposited and the drug is available into systemic circulation directly, and from there it is showing its action very fast. So the intravenous route is very fast route of drug action, and later on it get metabolized and get excreted. After metabolism, the metabolites are get excreted in the urine or in the feces, whatever the way of excretion of that drug. Then the next route of drug administration, oral route. So here oral route, pulmonary route and other routes which are other than the intravenous route are having one step more here, that is the absorption. So from absorption, the oral route, the site of absorption is the GI tract, that is the gastrointestinal tract, and from where the stomach or the intestine, large intestine, small intestine, all are the sites of their drug absorption, from which the drug is get absorbed and passed into the blood, that is the systemic circulation. Here you can see the absorption takes place in this GI tract, and this absorbed drug is enter into the systemic circulation. Then systemic circulation further the same path is followed, that is the metabolism and excretion. So all this having the ADME parameter, that is the absorption, distribution. This is the distribution, means once the drug is absorbed and available in the blood, it is get distributed to the site of action where it is how to show its pharmacological action. So it through the systemic circulation, the drug is sent go to the site of action. It exerts its pharmacological action there. Then later on, according to its pharmacological, uh, sorry, pharmaceutical half-life, it get metabolized and remain in the blood or in the body, and after that it get excreted by in the form of metabolites or unchanged in the urine or in the feces. So this is the ADME parameters, and this all parameters are considered into the pharmacokinetic study. So it is very important to study the pharmacokinetic of a drug to get how much drug is essential to show its action. So first of all, we will start with our definition of the we can say the absorption, how the movement uh, of drug takes place. So movement of unchanged drug from site of administration to the systemic circulation is called as the absorption. So when we are administering the drug through the oral route or intravenous route or pulmonary route or any other route, the drug movement from that administered site to the systemic circulation is called as the absorption. Then the absorption is nothing but a movement across the cell barriers. So when we are administering a drug, the drug shall cross the various barriers through which the drug reaches to the systemic circulation. So what are the cell barriers that have to be crossed by the drug to reach to the systemic circulation? The first is the cell membranes that separate the aqueous compartments. So we also other when the drug is administered in our body, the through the oral route, it went into the stomach, and in the stomach, the inner lining of the stomach. Then it went into the systemic circulation through that inner linings. So the cells which are present in the stomach have a specific barriers and layers. So there are the extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. So in this all, the drug get first deposited, and from there it is getting into the systemic circulation. So movement through cell involves traveling at least two lipid bilayers. So whenever the drug have to come inside the cell, the drug has to cross the lipid bilayer, which is a covering of the cell. So we also saw that the cell has a lipid bilayer and through which the drug has to go inside. There is also some tight junctions between the cells. The examples are in the central nervous system or in the placenta or in the testis. Through these also the drugs has to be processed. Then some freely permeable drugs and the sites like liver and spleen. Then vascular endothelium of the blood vessels also differs the permeability. So all this through these are the barriers through which the the drug has to go. Then it will get into the systemic circulation. So the small molecules can cross the cell membranes by different mechanisms. So what are the different mechanisms through which the absorption could take place? The one is the diffusion. So diffusion, which is takes place through the lipid layer. So this is the definition diffusion. When the drug is outside here, this get into the cell intracellular cytoplasm. This is the extracellular fluid, and this in this the drug which is going inside the cell. So lipids have the capacity of diffusion through the lipid bilayer, while the diffusion which are taking place through the aqueous channel, the another way, the through the aqueous channel. But most pores are too small to drugs. Means various drug molecules are larger in size, so they cannot cross through these aqueous channels. And the other mechanism by which the drug has to cross the cell membrane is the carrier mediated transport. So this carrier mediated transport means a carrier which is on the surface of the cell takes that drug molecule and leaves it into the cell cytoplasm and again ready for the another transport of the another drug molecule. So that is the carrier mediated transport that is takes place through the cell membrane. So this is called as the membrane transport through which the drug get crossed into the cell cytoplasm. Then next is the pinocytosis, is another way by which the drug get transported. So here the diffusion, which is number of molecules crossing membrane per unit area, it depends on the permeability coefficient. What is the permeability coefficient? Means if there is a layer between two compartments and we have put the fluid in the two compartments, the inner layer shall be permeable to transport the molecules from one compartment to other compartment. So this is the permeability, means the porousness of that membrane, the passage capacity of that particular layer through which the drug is passing. So the diffusion is depending on this permeability coefficient. The next is the carrier mediated transport. So carrier mediated transport is one of the, we can say, the specialized transport through which by which the drug is transported inside our cell membrane. So first we will see the transport types. There are the, again we are discussing here the passive transport and active transport. So passive transport is including the diffusion, Passive transport means there is no need of energy required for the passive transport. So passive transport do not require the energy to get the molecule traveling from one place to another place. So this is do not require any type of energy. While in the active transport there is a requirement of the energy in the form of ATP. So active transport requires the energy because the active transport takes place against the gradient or against the uh, permeability coefficient. So it requires the energy to carry that molecule from one place to another place, while the passive transport do not require the energy. So that is the diffusion. It is, do not require the energy because in the diffusion the molecules are transported or transferred from higher concentration to lower concentration. So there is no energy requirement for the transportation in the passive transport or in the diffusion. Then in the passive transport, other type is the facilitated diffusion. It is takes place along the concentration gradient. So this takes place along with the concentration gradient. So facilitated diffusion is also called as the carrier mediated osmosis that we all saw earlier. The carrier mediated osmosis that requires no energy, but what it takes place, it is the movement of molecules across the cell membrane via a special transport proteins which are available on the cell membrane surface. It is a passive process. Carrier proteins allow diffusion of molecules across the cell membrane by undergoing the changes in the structure and allow the molecule to pass through the membrane, and it is achieved by a change concentration gradient so that the drug molecule could transport from one side to other side. So the transport types are two. One is the passive transport, other is the active transport. The passive transport do not require energy and they have the two types. One is the diffusion, it is depending on the permeability, while the facilitated diffusion, that is the carrier mediated one and do not require the energy, but the carrier which is present on the cell surface membrane can transport that molecule by changing their structure itself and place travel make it transport to inside our cell cytoplasm. While the active transport is requiring the energy. Next is the third type of passive transport is the filtration. So filtration is a movement of water and soluble molecules across the cell membrane due to hydrostatic pressure which is created in the compartment. So depending on the size of the membrane pores, only solutes that have the permeable size of that molecule can pass through this membrane. So what is that filtration? Filtration is the common process that we are filtering the material like our tea. When we are pouring, making a tea, we are filtering it with using the net, and only the liquid portion is passed through that net. The remaining uh, the tea powder remains on that net, so that the tea is get extracted and we are separating it. So this is the filtration, and by this way, the filtration way, the molecules are also get transported with the passive mechanism. How the filtration takes place? It is takes place due to the hydrostatic pressure. So higher pressure side will molecules will get transported from higher pressure side to the lower pressure side. That is the filtration. While the osmosis is the movement, the passive transport type osmosis is the movement of water molecule across a selectively permeable membrane. So in the osmosis, there is a change in the concentration of the solutes, and this causes the permeation of that molecules from one compartment to other compartment by the process of osmosis. So depending on the concentration of that solutes, it is transported from one compartment to other compartment. For example, when we are talking about our body compartments, uh, in the blood, depending on the concentration of sodium chloride, the solution can be labeled as the isotonic, hypertonic, and hypotonic. So the isotonic means our blood, which have the osmotic pressure, which is the both compartments having the similar osmotic pressure, which is having the similar type of sodium concentration in the both compartments. So it is isotonic. So our body fluids are isotonic, and when we are injecting the drugs through the intravenous route, the solution should be of isotonic capacity. Then the hypertonic means it have the higher osmotic pressure than the blood, that is labeled as the hypertonic. And the hypotonic means the osmotic pressure of that fluid having less than the blood. So this is the hypotonic. So we have to uh, make that changes according to our blood isotonicity. Otherwise, our cells will get shrink or swell according to the isotonicity changes. So they may be get burst or damage or get die. The next type is the active transport. The active transport is the movement of molecule across a cell membrane from a region of lower concentration to the region of higher concentration. Means here the drug molecule is transported against the concentration gradient. So from lower concentration to higher concentration, when we are transferring the molecule, we need to spend an energy with the form of ATP. The cell uses that ATP for energy to move that molecule from lower concentration compartment to higher concentration compartment with the active transport mechanism. So this is all the transport mechanism that we have to study, and these are very simple to understand. So passive do not involve the consumption of energy. Four different types: diffusion, facilitated diffusion, then filtration and osmosis. While the active transport requires energy because we are transferring the molecule against the concentration gradient with the help of um, movement of molecules with the help of the energy, and the molecule is transported from lower concentrations compartment to higher concentration compartment. So here we can see this is takes place in our uh, renal system, renal tubule, biliary tract, blood-brain barrier, or gastrointestinal tract. So this involves the active transport, and this is all about our transport mechanisms.